Hello class, this is your teacher Mr. McDougall with your next Premiere Pro tutorial. In this one we're going to learn how to mask, just like we did in Photoshop. It'll be very simple where we add layer mask, we create a mask so we can see through one layer and see underneath it, and we're going to use it to create a clone trail. So I have an example here that you can see of what you'll be making. You'll be making something similar to this. Using mask, we're going to have this person jumping and leaving a clone trail behind him. So let me show you how to do that in Premiere Pro. As usual, download the exercise files for today. Make sure you save them in a new project folder. Open your Intro to Graphics, create a new folder for the day with the same name, and then put your exercise folder in there. It's crucial that you have a separate folder for everything because the project file and other files are going to go in here as well. We don't want to leave everything disorganized just in the Intro to Graphics folder. So let's open Premiere Pro, create a new project. This one is 604 masking. So set the location. Remember, name and location are the two most important things. So we're going to save it in the masking folder that you made earlier. Don't save it in the exercise files, just save it in the folder you made. Click Save. This will always be turned on so we don't go into the import mode, and hit Create. This will be the last time I'll walk you through this whole process. After that, I'm just going to start with Premiere Pro's open and the exercise files are ready to go. So now that we've done that, we can bring our exercise folder in there and we'll get started. You always want this purple project folder to be outside the exercise files. If that's in here and you try to import the folder, it's going to give you an error. So make sure this is outside of the exercise file folder. That's why we make a separate folder to avoid any confusion on Premiere Pro. So now we have our files. So all future tutorials from this point on, I'm just going to start right here. I'm going to let you download the exercise files on your own, assuming you've understood it, and we'll get going from this point. So pause the video if you have not downloaded them yet and come back to this point. So you'll see I've given you 3 exercise files to play with, and you can scrub over them to see the video. This first one is the guy jumping, the second one is a basketball player dunking, and the other one is this BMX bicycle going this way. Let's start with masking 01, the jumping guy. So let's bring him onto the timeline. All right, perfect. So you could scrub through and you could see the video is the one of the example I just gave you. So we're going to use our masking under effect controls to have the person leave a clone trail. So when you're editing like this, it's good to give yourself space. Remember, you can adjust these panels around. You can click and drag this down. You can see how this panel gets a little bit bigger. I like to have this area and the timeline as big as I can. So right now the timeline's a little small, but that's okay because I want this area to be as big as possible. We can also stretch it out this way if needed. So as always, when you create this, rename your sequence. So this is the sequence that was created. It always creates it under the same name as the first video you put down. So let's rename our sequence to sequence 1 so we don't get confused. And now it says sequence 1 right there because each other video will be its own separate sequence. Okay, so what we're going to do first is you're going to move the CTI, the playhead, to where the first clone is going to be. We're going to create 2 clones. So we'll create one over here on the right side and we'll create another one somewhere over here on the left side. It doesn't need to be the exact same spot I do it, but relatively in the same area. We'll do one on the right side of the screen and one on the left side of the screen. So move your CTI right about where you want the first clone to be. I'm going to do it right about there. So right about here, and this is going to be the spot where the clone is going to start. So we're going to mark this spot. So click on your video file and hit the letter M on your keyboard. Hit M on your keyboard and you'll see right here it makes a mark right here. So I've marked that this exact spot is where I want it. In case I accidentally move my CTI around, I know that this is the spot I want it to be. So now that we've done that, we're going to take an easy screenshot of this program monitor right here. And you don't need to do a snipping tool screenshot like I've shown you for your whole screen. We're just going to export the frame by clicking this button right over here. See this little camera icon? It says export frame. Click on that. What it's going to do is it's going to take a screenshot right here and export it. So it's going to give it some kind of weird name like this, sequence still. Just give it an easily recognizable name like clone 1. I'm just going to call mine clone 1 for right now. Where it says format, change it to JPEG if it's not already on JPEG. It might be on BMP or something else. Make sure the format is JPEG. And then it's going to ask you again where to save it. Every time we export something, it says where to save it. So make sure we tell it to save in our project folder. So click Browse and make sure you're in your Intro to Graphics and just do the same masking folder that you created and then choose that folder. So it will save right there. And lastly, make sure this box is checked for Import to Project. If you forget to check this box, it's okay. You can bring it in later, but this will save you a step later by putting the image automatically into your bin right here. So when I click OK, if I come back to the project right here, I could see here's my screenshot. If I click back on the tab, not the exercise files, click back on the project tab, I can see the clone shot has been imported automatically. If you forgot to hit the import button and it's not there, just go back to your project folder and you should have saved it right here. So then just drag this in like that to bring it in. So now we have our image. We're going to bring this image onto the timeline, onto track V2 right here on top of the original. So drag this in right there. And remember, images don't have a time limit because it's just an image. You can make it as long or as short as you want. The length we want it to be is we want it to be at the end of the video clip. So move it all the way so it lines up at the end of the clip, and then it should start right where your playhead is, right where the CTI is. If you accidentally move the CTI on accident, that's why we made this mark, so you can line it up right there. I'll drag it right here, boom, line it up right at the mark, right exactly where it needs to be, right there. So that's perfect. Okay, so next we are going to create a mask around this image so we can still see the video underneath it. If I play it right here, it looks like it's a freeze frame because the image is covering the entire screen and I can't see the rest of the video. That's why it plays up until that point right there. So we're going to mask out the guy so we only see the guy. Make sure that you click on the image to do the mask. If you create a mask on here, you'll see a black screen and that will be incorrect and you'll have to draw your mask all over again. So take the extra time to make sure you click on the image. Once you've clicked on it, go to your Effect Controls. Under Effect Controls, we're going to go under Video. We're not going to do motion this time. So close the motion one if it's open. We're going to do this opacity one right here. So open the opacity. And we're going to click on this little pen icon. It's not the pen tool. There is a pen tool down here, but this is different. This is the free draw option, but it looks like the little head of a pen. So it looks very similar. Okay, so click on the pen. And then we're going to come over here and we're going to start drawing a mask around the subject. When you do that, do not do it with the screen zoomed out like this. I want you to zoom in. The way you can zoom in is right here. By default, it's on fit, so no matter how I change the screen size, this changes to fit this area. You can change it here to see how zoomed in you want to be. If you do 50%, it will zoom in. Yours might be different depending on your screen size. If your screen size is more zoomed in, your percentages will look different than mine. So you can see how it gradually zooms in. If I go to 200, it zooms in like that. 150 zooms in like that. So you need to be really zoomed in to look around. And now you're wondering, how do I get back to the guy? I can't move it around. For that, you'll need to switch to the hand tool. In Photoshop, we would hold the space bar to move around. However, in Premiere Pro, you can't do that because the space bar is the play button. See, if I press the space bar, it plays the video. And that's not what I want to do. So you need to switch to the hand tool. This is another opportunity to practice using the shortcuts because you'll need to switch back and forth from the hand tool, which says H is the shortcut, and the selection tool, which is V. So get used to switching between H and V. If I hit H, I have a little hand, and now I can move the image around where I'm zoomed in. So zoom in close, kind of like this, 150, 200, maybe even 400%, depending on how close you are. And then make sure you're back on the selection tool or hit V so you see the pen pop up because we have the pen selected for mask. You should only have one mask. See where it says mask 1? If I start clicking, if I come over here and I'm trying to draw this and I don't see anything and I go, where'd my mask go? Click it again. I don't understand. You have to move this over so it's directly over the image and then you'll see the pen tool. But be careful if you make too many masks like this. You should only have one. So if you have another one, just click on this one, right click, and then do clear to delete it. We should only have one mask right here. And if you come over here again and you still don't see your little pen, click on the mask to highlight it, and then you'll see the pen come back. All right, so now with the pen, just like we did in Photoshop, we click and trace. We don't have to click and hold our mouse to draw, but you're going to click and trace around him Make sure it's pretty close. Make sure it's right on the line as you're going around. If you mess up with the pen tool, like you click way out here or something, you can always drag the point and move it back. Or you can hit Control-Z to undo that mark and try again. Or you can take the dot and move it around if you need to, like that, to go back. So make a nice clean trace around him. And remember to switch back to the hand tool. Hit H to switch back to the hand tool so you can move the image around. And then back to V again to continue tracing. Go all the way around him. I'll speed this part up right now. So when you get to the very end, you're going to close the gap. Make sure you close the gap. This mask is not done yet because these 2 points haven't clicked. When you get to the very end, you're going to click on your very first point and click right there, and you'll see that the subject has been masked out. Okay, so pause the video if you're not done. Finish doing that part, and then return to right here once you've masked out the subject. So now that the subject is masked out, by default it has this mask feather, which controls the softness of the mask. We're going to set that to 0. What it does, if I drag this up, you can see how much softer the mask gets around the edges. We want it to be 0 or close to 0, maybe less than 5. That way it's a nice solid mask. So now if I go back to fit, let's change this back to fit. Right now I can see that the person's been masked out. So this image is just the guy that I masked out. If I hide this bottom layer, it'll look like that. After you completed your mask, if yours looks like this, that's all black, it means you did the mask on the wrong layer. It means you masked out this one and not the other one. So if this is what yours looks like after you're done, go back and do it again. You need to delete the mask off this one and add the mask to this. But now you can see what happens. Now as he runs and plays, if I play the video, it's going to freeze frame a mask right there. So this image stays right there and he's masked out all by himself, so the rest of the video will play. So we're going to repeat the exact same process in another spot. So let's pick another spot. You make sure you finish your other mask, pause it if you need to, and come back to this point when you're ready. But we're going to do the same thing. Let's pick our second point. I'm going to do right here. And then same thing on the video clip. I'm going to hit M to make a mark. So I know that this is the spot right here that the clone is going to be in. In case my playhead moves, I know that I want it right there. So now we're going to export a frame again. Click over here where it says export frame. And again, just give it an easy name to remember. I'm going to call mine clone 2. It should already be on JPEG and your leftover folder. It should already be remembering what you put last time. So you shouldn't have to change this again if you did the first time correctly. So it's going to go into our masking folder. It's going to import right into my project, and it's a JPEG. So click OK. And you can see it imported the second clone image right there. So this one is actually going to go on track V3 right here. So this one's going to come up on V3, and similar to before, it's going to end at the end of the video, but it's going to start where the CTI and the mark is right here. This is where I want it to start. So I'm going to expand this a little bit again. This might happen where now I have trouble seeing this. You can scroll through right here. You could scroll up and down to see higher up on your timeline or your video tracks. Okay, so now we're going to do the same thing on the second one. So make sure you have this second one, the top one on V3 selected, and we're going to do the exact same thing. We're going to mask out this guy. So let's go over back to our effect controls. Make sure clone 2 or the top one is selected. Under opacity, click the little pen icon. And now we're going to start drawing our mask. Same as before, make sure that you are zoomed in. I do not want to see you tracing from way out here in the distance because your line will not be accurate. So let's change this to zoom in. I was about 150. Switch back to my hand tool so I can move around the image. Let's say right about there. That looks good. All right, so go back to my selection tool with V. So I have the pen. My mask is selected, so that's why I see the pen. I have this selected, so I'm good to go. So now, again, we could start drawing. So start tracing this one out. Again, I'll speed this process up for you. Okay, so just like before, take your time to draw all the way around him like I just did. I masked him all the way out completely. And then at the very end, when you're done, make sure you close your mask by clicking the original dot. That will finalize it to close it. If you don't see it like this, it means your mask is still open. You didn't click the original dot. And again, that's why you need to zoom in to make sure you really click on that dot because it could be hard to see when it's so small. So pause the video if you haven't finished yours to come back to this point, and we'll finish this effect off. Same as before, let's set the mask feather down to about 0, so it's a nice clean line and not this fuzzy line like that. Perfect. And now we can change this back to fit so we can see a job well done. So let's see this now. I'm going to adjust this right to here. So if I play it, it will, when it gets to this point, when you see the time indicator get to here, the first clone will arrive, and then the second clone will arrive right there. So there's clone 1 and then clone 2. Perfect. That looks great. So that is the effect. There's actually 2 ways you can do this effect. So you could do it the way I just showed you, where he leaves the trail of clones. So right there goes leave 1 and leave 2. Or if we switch sides of the image to the other side of the marker, it looks like the clones are already there and he's collecting them. So watch this. For this one, if I move it over here, so it actually starts at the beginning of the clip and it ends at the first marker instead. It'll be reversed. Same thing with this one. I'm going to leave it, I'm going to move it all the way to the front. So if we started at the beginning and then move the end to where the mark is, then it'll have a different effect. In this version, the clones are already there and he collects them as he goes by. So watch, when it gets to that point, he's going to take that clone and take this clone as well. So you could do it either way. You can do the trail of clones or collecting the clones, whichever way you would like to do it. So that will be your first sequence, and I want you to do the same thing on the other exercise files. Make sure they're on their own sequence. So take masking number 2, drag that one onto the new item so it becomes its own new sequence. We'll rename this one. This will be sequence 2. That way you're editing it separately. And then same thing for number 3 with the bicycle. Bring this person down onto their own sequence, and this will be sequence 3. So you can have 3 sequences, 3 separate videos that you're exporting, just like we did before. Same thing, leave a trail, leave at least 2 clones. You could put more than 2, but do at least 2. So maybe one right here before he jumps, and then another one somewhere up here during the dunk. That would be a good spot for the second one. And then same thing right here, at least 2 clones for the BMXer, maybe one right about there. And you could do a couple. This one you could probably fit 3 or 4 if you wanted to fit more in there, but do at least 2 for each one of these. And you could do either version that I showed you. You can do the leaving the trail or the collecting the clones like here. Pick either version, export all 3, and then turn in all 3 exported videos to the assignment for today. This will lead us into our very first Premiere Pro project on the next tutorial. Okay? So have fun and let me know if you have any questions.